welcome to the Activated Storytellers 42nd podcast, May 3rd, 2007.
This week's story is The Baker and the Judge, a folktale from Israel. Hi, I'm Dennis.
And I'm Zephyr.
And we are 2/3 of the Activated Storytellers. Ha-ha, you thought it was going to be Zephyr missing this week, didn't you?
Yeah, I was going to say you guys probably thought I was going on another one of my trips to North Carolina, but no, that is not the case. I am here.
Yes, it is Kimberly, of course, who is missing. She is in Nevada visiting her parents due to a family crisis. We had expected her back today, but she has decided to stay 1 week longer. So we may even be doing another podcast without her, or we may not do one next week. We're not certain yet.
I think might as well do another podcast without her. As long as we're over here having all kinds of fun without her, why not?
Yes. Shall we tell her all the things we've been doing?
Well, okay. What do you want to start with?
No, I mean when she gets back. We're not done yet.
Getting started, huh?
Yes. We are still in the Chicago area, although we are taking off tomorrow. We're going to the Detroit area. We'll tell you a little bit about why later on. In Chicago this week, we had a fun day a few days ago. We took a train to downtown Chicago to the old post office, a dilapidated, abandoned old building. Whee!
We took a train downtown. It took us a while to find it, actually, because we were walking around asking people where it is, and as we discovered for the umpteenth time, people have no idea how to get around in their hometown. They have absolutely no idea where anything is.
Yes, we did get some bad directions, including the infamous remark, "You can't miss it."
You know you're doomed when you hear that one. Well, it took us a while, but we did find it. Now, as I'm sure you know, we didn't go all the way out into Chicago to see some old building. There was a very specific purpose that we went for, and that purpose was they are actually filming The Dark Knight, which is a sequel to Batman Begins, out in Chicago, and they were doing some filming on the old post office. Now, when we got there, they'd stopped filming already, but we did get to see some of the set as they were taking it down.
Yes, because we asked a carpenter who was working there to take us inside, and at first he said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't do that," and then he changed his mind and took us in and let us look around and tell them what we saw.
Well, inside, they had rigged it up to look like a bank, because the building is an old post office, but it's not being used anymore by the city of Chicago. So on the outside, you could actually see there was a place where they'd put up letters that said Gotham National Bank, and on the inside, there was some teller desks set up, like you might have a bank teller and a few extra things you might have in a bank. And then there was also one wall, or what they'd apparently put up a temporary wall, that had some debris around it, where they apparently staged a bus crash through the wall into the bank. And then the Joker's there, and he robs the bank, and they'd built a side facade out of wood on the side to make the building a little bit longer than it actually was, and that was apparently where the escape vehicle went out.
And the Joker this time will be portrayed by Heath Ledger, an Australian actor. And he was the only principal who was shooting in town this week, I believe. But they're going to resume shooting that scene in June in Chicago.
But I have to say, I went and snuck a peek on the internet. I found a teaser poster with a picture of the Joker. And I have to say that this looks like it will be by far the best rendition of a Joker ever to be done in a Batman movie.
And when does that movie open?
Summer 2008.
We have to wait a whole year, wow. But we'll be able to see where we stood in that film, and you will be too. Now that we've described it, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Now, since we were this close, we couldn't resist going up in the Sears Tower, which we'd never done before.
We'd never done the Sears Tower before, but we did do another very famous building, which was the John Hancock.
Sears Tower is much taller, of course. The Sears Tower is the tallest building in North America, and for 25 years, it was the tallest building in the whole world. And we didn't have to stand in line because there were very few people going up, and it was a cold, rainy, foggy day, but visibility was still pretty good. In fact, normally they say you can see 50 miles in any direction. By normally, I mean on a clear day. The day we went, we could see at least 25 or 30 miles in any direction. It was still a very impressive view.
There was actually one side where you looked out of the tower, and you could actually see it was way above cloud level, and you could actually see the clouds, and then there were the tops of buildings sort of peeking over the clouds over there. So it was a really impressive sight.
Yes, I think the clouds and the rain actually gave it a more interesting atmosphere than there would have been if it was sunny. And speaking of towers, we also saw something very interesting the last week. We saw the Leaning Tower of Niles in Niles, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. And this, as the name suggests, is a replica of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, a half-size replica.
And it's in front of the YMCA, of all places.
It was built in 1934, so it's been around for a while. It was built to store water in. Now it's just a place to take pictures, a place to pretend you're in Italy. In fact, while we were there, I saw 3 rather elderly people walk by and have a look at it, and I got the impression that they themselves were Italian.
Really?
Like they were coming by to have a look at it because they were homesick or something like that.
You know what that reminds me of?
What does that remind you of?
That reminds me of the time we were in Japan, and we were going to a theme park, Edo Wonderland, which is absolutely spectacular. If you ever get a chance, check it out. But anyway, on the drive there, they had a smaller scale replica of Mount Rushmore that was visible from the road. Do you remember that?
Yes, I thought that was very interesting as well.
In Japan, of all places, they have a smaller scale replica of Mount Rushmore that we saw, which is kind of ironic because here we were in Japan looking at it, and we'd never actually seen the real thing.
Yes, that's one of the few things we haven't seen in America yet, but we're going to get there before long. Now, since we are talking about towers, we thought we'd do a story this week about bread, since it's totally unrelated. This is a story that's been told in many cultures, but it may have originated in Israel. In fact, in one version of the story, the judge is the famous King Solomon. This is a story that we call The Bread and the Judge. Once upon a time, at a fair, there was a baker who had pies and cakes and all sorts of baked goods for sale.
Oh, pies, cakes, and the baked goods for sale. Oh.
Well, he was out selling his goods when along came a man who started sniffing. Ah, boy, that smells good. Is that cinnamon? Ah, man, that smells good.
Why are you sniffing? Do you have some kind of strange nose allergy?
Oh, no, I just like the smell of those breads and pastries and pies. Oh, it's so mouth-watering.
Get away from there. What are you doing? Do not sniff my pies and my breads and my pastries. Look at that. That's my cinnamon roll. What are you doing?
If I could afford it, I would buy this one to hang it around my neck so I would smell better. Oh, but what's this one here? Ah, that's good. Oh, this one over here. That smells good too. Oh, boy.
What are you doing? If you cannot pay for my breads, then do not smell them.
Hey, the air belongs to everybody.
Yes, but the smell of the bread belongs to the bread, and the bread belongs to me.
That's crazy. Anybody can smell.
Yes, but nobody can smell as bad as you.
Just like my mother used to make.
All right, that's it. I've had enough of you, fellow. You can either get out of here, or I can call the judge.
Just go right ahead. Nah.
Judge! Judge! What? Are you calling for me? Yes, I said the judge. This man is sniffing my bread.
That's right. So what?
So, what's your point? My point is that he is smelling the bread, and the smell belongs to the bread, and the bread belongs to me. I believe if he is to smell my bread, he should pay for the bread as though he were to eat it.
You're crazy.
All right. I tell you what. Have you any coins on you, sir?
Well, I have these 3 right here.
Very well. Put them in your hand.
Okay.
Now, close your hand into a fist and shake them around a little bit. There you are. You can be paid for the smell of your bread by the sound of his coins.
Makes sense to me. Well, that's enough sniffing bread. Oh, I see some cheese over there. I'm going to go sniff some cheese. See you later. And that's the story of the baker and the judge.
Or the judge and the baker, depending on which way you look at it.
All right, now, as we mentioned, we're about to get out of Chicago finally. We've been here the entire month of April. We're headed for Dearborn, Michigan, just outside Detroit. And why are we going there?
I am going to attend HauntCon. Most of you are probably scratching your heads at that one. HauntCon, that's HAUNTCON. It's a big industry convention for people who design, work in, and build haunted houses, like myself, which is why I'm going there. And some of the people that are going to be there include some people I worked with this past Halloween at Carlson Manor, and also there are going to be some people from Universal Studios Florida. So this ought to be an interesting event. I'll get to see a bunch of new products demonstrated and whatnot.
And Carlson Manor is in San Jose.
Yeah, so that'll be in Dearborn, Michigan. Also, there will be the biggest haunted house in, I believe, the world. It's about 4 stories in a city block. So this ought to be very interesting, right up my alley.
All right, we'll have you give us a full report on our next podcast. I'm sure all of you are missing Kimberly as much as we are right now.
And by the way, something we've been talking about for a while now, but I promise you folks, this is actually on the way. The Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 activated story park, theme park, that's been testing. I've had my little testing crew working on it, and I've actually created the full park map. And Mom's in Reno right now, but I sent the stuff to her over the internet, so that should be up relatively soon, this week sometime or next week.
Okay, that's going to be it for this time. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
The activated storytellers perform at schools and libraries nationwide. On stage, we use American Sign Language, physical comedy, imaginative props, and a giant, oversized book to bring the stories to life. For booking information, check our website at www.activated-storytellers.com, where you can also find out when the Activated Storytellers will be performing near you. Read a story, or order one of our audio CDs. Until next time.